before I like to go out shaking my tits for the podcast, I like to see how the professionals do it.
Welcome to IndieCent, everyone. It's been a while because this is this game I picked out. I didn't realize would be this long. But we're here to talk about This Is the Police, of course, myself, and Dark, and my two regular panelists, Elmo and Danni.
Hi.
Hello.
And yeah, this game, I didn't fucking realize just what a project this is going to be to get through. It was so much, in fact, that I technically didn't finish it. I had to watch 2 hours of cutscenes on YouTube before I came here. But yeah, I definitely have enough to give a pretty solid opinion of it.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a lot of games we want to talk about that we've been playing. And so let's just cut to the chase before, so this intro doesn't go on too long, because this is probably going to be a talky episode. Danni, what have you been playing?
Most of what I've been playing actually is old stuff I've talked about. Most of the month pretty much just playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I finally beat it. Clocked in at 100 hours and like 32 minutes. So it's
respectable Persona 4 time.
Hey, that's longer than I've spent on any Persona. And I think Persona 3...
I think I spent 120... I think on Persona 4 I spent like 120 hours on my first playthrough.
I think I spent maybe like 90, 95 on Persona 3 and then 93 on Persona 5. And Persona 4 can just... But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was a long game. I also kind of extended that time a little by every time there was a new chapter, I would go around to every single different continent and look for new side quests and stuff to do, and try and do them as many as I could before the next story beat. Just because.
Oh yeah, I kept doing that with Mass Effect over and over. And especially in 3 when I was trying to find all the war assets.
Just because I like
to... I just kept going back to the Citadel over and over, and nothing ever happened except like once every seven visits.
It was... I remember doing the same thing with Mass Effect, but at least with Xenoblade, once you got onto a continent, you could just like open up the map, and if there were new quest markers, they would show up as question marks on the map, which was nice. And I mostly did that just because I like to be over leveled. Leveling happens in two ways in Xenoblade. You get automatic XP for defeating enemies and stuff, but stuff like quest XP, it doesn't automatically apply to your character. It gets banked away, and then when you rest at an inn, you can choose to level up as many levels as you want from that XP. And the more you save up, I think it adds I think the more you save up, or if you rest at certain inns, I'm not completely sure on this, but I think it adds more XP based on how much you have. So I would just go through, do all the side quests I could, and then before doing the next story thing, just level up as much as possible. And I ended up, like, about halfway through the game, I ended up over leveled for almost every area, which was nice, because they get populated with a lot of enemies, and it's nice not having them automatically attack you, like all of them automatically attack you because you're 10 levels higher than them. Yeah, that game comes together really well. I talked about it after beating it on Twitter, but it definitely feels like I read in an interview that about 40 Monolith Soft people actually worked on the game, the rest were on Zelda at the time. So there was a lot of outsourcing done for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and it kind of shows. It's not a fantastic looking game, and it's clunky in some ways. And they even admitted in the interview, yeah, there were they singled out the UI, like, yeah, the UI isn't very good because we weren't able to put the time into that because of how stretched our resources was. But it's a complete game, which in this day and age I'm thankful and surprised about, since usually you see them putting a lot into one thing and the rest just being an empty game and just having to fix it with DLC and endless patches, or just not fix it at all, Metal Gear. But it's still a great game. It doesn't excel in one thing, but it's good at a lot of things, which I really like. And the story comes together amazingly in that last act. I think it has some really, really cool stuff in there that apparently, like, I've never played Xenoblade 1. Apparently there's a thing in it, I don't know what, even though I've gone through it, that hooks into Xenoblade 1 somehow. I don't know what it is, though, because I still want to play Xenoblade 1 and don't want to find out. But I went through the whole game not realizing that, so yeah, something to look forward to if you like Xenoblade 1. But yeah, Xenoblade 2, great game. Pick it up. If you need another time waster on your Switch, like another JRPG, SMT5 isn't going to be out for a long time, so you have more than enough time to pick up Xenoblade 2. And no, I went through the whole game without getting the rabbit titty lady. Never saw her once. I tried, but I couldn't get her.
Anything else?
Oh, I did read something recently, just a little interesting thing about the game. I think I mentioned the gacha system for getting the different blades and the different characters that come with them. The game was recently data mined, and they figured out how the drop rates for that work. And it was already figured that the more you get, the drop rates go down. But what they found was when you start the game, there are different groups of drop rates from the start, where some blades have higher drop rates and others have lower. And the more cores you use to try and get a blade, the more that go by without you getting one, the odds of the drop rates increase for certain ones. And those are like your pity blades, as they've been dubbed. And so if you use enough core crystals, you're guaranteed to get a blade, which I didn't realize, and I think that's a pretty cool way of doing it, because you can go through a lot and you just think you're not going to get any. So it was cool how that worked out. That aside, I also finally finished Yakuza Kiwami. Nothing to add. Good game. But it made me really want to play Yakuza 6 because I got the demo, the broken one, that's actually the full game. And I played through the first chapter before Sega locked it out. And Yakuza 6, that's gonna be a Game of the Year contender. It's so much fun for that first game. There's just so much.
I would advise at least going back to Yakuza 2 on the PS2, because it's really good and its story is directly connected to the events of 1 and sets up a lot of stuff.
I'm waiting for
future
Kiwami
games.
2 in like 3 years.
I'm just warning you, because the Yakuza series does care a lot about its continuity, even in that crappy zombie spin-off they did. If you didn't play Yakuza 2, you're gonna miss out on a lot.
I mean, I've already gone through the memory stuff, so I pretty much know the bullet points of everything that happens in the series. I can't remember it all, but I'll see it and I'll be like, oh yeah.
But now you'll never meet the North Korean mafia guy who's clearly from
I will
the
when I play Kiwami 2. In like 5 years.
Alright, anything else?
One last thing. I'll talk more about Yakuza 6 when it's actually out and I can play it proper. But I started 9 persons, 9 hours, 9 doors last night. And I got through 2 endings, and I will probably go through the rest today. And that game is really good. I've had to look up answers to a couple things on walkthrough like a handful of times. 3 times, I think. 2 of them were just because I was dumb. Like, one of them was I thought I had all the stuff well, 2 of them were I thought I had all the stuff I needed. And I just overlooked something off in the corner in the rooms. And the other was that I was just dumb and forgot what hexadecimals were.
Oh, I actually have a Tumblr post that I want to bring up right now. I'm going to read it in its entirety. Protagonist. Ow, my ass hurts. Character. That reminds me of this story where the scientist hit his ass on the edge of a table but didn't feel it. Then months later he died of ass pain. They call it temporal ass pain or TAP. Protag. I tapped that character. Say we took 2 asses, both slapped them really hard, there'd be a 56.000079% chance that one of them won't be able to feel it. The pain just didn't get absorbed by the ass tissue, it's being transported to the future. They call people who don't feel ass pain until later tappers. I wonder if they could transport ass pain to someone else. 0. I've injected ass poison into all of your left butt cheeks. You have exactly 2 hours to solve my ass slap
That's
puzzle.
999. So the kind of like I don't know what I call it, temporal physics or whatever. The stuff about telepathy and everything that it's trying to figure out it's a cool running theme, and I'm looking forward to figure out what all that's about. So far, I've only gotten bad endings. I think they're called the sub ending and the axe ending.
Oh yeah, those are bad endings. Oh, you want to get an ending guide so you can get to the safe ending, because if you get the coffin ending before you get the safe ending, you're going to be upset.
Well,
you're going to realize you just wasted an entire playthrough, and then you have to do it all
I did look
again.
up an ending guide, and I have one for when I play later. And it said if I get the safe ending first, I can't get the coffin ending.
Yeah, I know, and you don't want the coffin ending because it's just the true ending, except it cuts off right before anything actually happens.
I can't get all the ending achievements.
Trust me, there's no reason to get the coffin ending other than achievements. It's literally a troll.
Something.
What should I move on to myself?
Just quick things about the game. There's weird writing things. Like my biggest complaint about the writing is just how just out of nowhere the protagonist gets really horny, and I'm like, dude, this isn't the place or the time. Like an extended sequence where a character's worried, like a girl's worried about they're gonna take an elevator down to a floor that might be submerged in water and they'll all drown, and he's just turning it into a long running joke about how she's getting wet. And like, dude, stop, you're all dying.
Yeah.
2 people have died so far in this playthrough. And by the end, everyone did die. Bad ends.
I would suggest getting all the bad ends except coughing, because they add a little bit more to the story and help fill in.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get all the endings I can, and maybe I'll get the coffin ending. I don't know. But so all it does is cut off one scene from the true end.
No, it cuts off the entirety of the true end except the very beginning of it. It's literally like, oh, I don't know what to do now. Go get the true ending. So you have the safe ending is the prerequisite to get the true ending. because this game is nonsense.
Well, I like it's short. It's really short, which I like because I got through I started it yesterday, and I went to work and I came back and played more. And by the time I finished playing for the day, I'd gotten 2 endings. And the fact that it just lets me jump around the map at will, I love that it lets from the beginning. It lets.
Wait, which version?
I'm playing the PS4 version.
Huh, I don't remember skip feature on the DS version.
There isn't like a skip feature in the text, but if I press down on the D-pad, it opens up the whole flowchart that shows all the different branches, like from the beginning, and it's question marks if I haven't gotten to those areas, and I can just jump around to ones I've already gotten to go ahead and make a different decision to go somewhere else.
Okay, yeah, that's not so bad. I was thinking it would be more like the mobile version, which cut out the puzzle rooms.
But
yeah.
What's the point? Whatever. But
I know it's thematically important.
So that's a really neat feature and makes going through the different, like, I've looked up the decisions I need to make to get the true ending or the coffin ending, depending on if I get the safe ending. And I can probably just, like, jump to the areas, go through them, make the dialogue choices, and then jump to the next one. And
I remember there's some very specific things you have to do for the safe ending and the true ending, and I'm not sure you can just jump around.
Well, I can't jump to them exactly, but
like
there are certain areas. There are, like, a few specific things, and I remember the areas they're in. They're just... I would have to go through a couple escape rooms again, but I already know the solutions, so I could blow through them.
Can I go ahead and get to my stuff?
I'm enjoying 999.
Okay. Let's see, since I've been gone, I haven't played as many games as I wanted because Mass Effect happened. And that's why I didn't finish This Is the Police, I'm sorry. But I finished A New Beginning, that Daedalic point and click. I think I mentioned it last time, I don't remember. The one about global warming.
I think so.
Yeah, I finished it, and I was actually, despite the art kind of being ugly, I was really impressed with it by the end. That I haven't seen a game that politically open in a long time. Like, at one point, the main character at the ending is just like, 2 people just died because we can't accept scientific facts. And I'm like, thank you. Thank you for just being open about this. And it actually has a really clever twist in it. I spoiled for myself, but when I did spoil, I was like, wait, really? And then when it finally happened in the game, I was like, that was actually genuinely clever. I was like, it's hard to recommend it because the voice acting is just the worst. And it doesn't look good, but like, it's an interesting point and click game I think needs to be remembered more often. As far as bad point and click games go, do you remember in October when GOG was giving out 2 free games on their site from this one company? There was one called Stronghold HD, which people liked, and then there was the other one that instantly got everyone's attention because the description of the game sounded like some sort of MRA fever dream.
That's the one you were talking about the other night.
Yes, AD 2044. Oh, and when I was doing research for an article for this, I came across some very surprising revelations. Not only is this 1996 game a terrible remake to a 1991 game, both games are a loose adaptation of a 1984 Polish movie that's title translates roughly to Sex Mission. And it's an actual serious movie trying to be about gender dynamics and authoritarianism, and it's so fucking stupid. Oh my god. And they made it worse with the games. It's incredible. It's like, if you haven't heard of this game, the premise is that feminism, terrorism, blah blah blah, ramble ramble, nuclear war, ramble ramble, matriarchy. And then it's the future.
Woo.
and you're the only guy left alive, blah blah blah. Kiss girl, get horny, blah blah blah. Try to escape, blah blah blah. Yeah, and then the game, and it's like a terrible misclone, like the worst misclone you can imagine. Where like the puzzles are actually really simple, but they've made going to the proper camera angles to find the items so ridiculously difficult. It adds like an extra hour to the game. But, and it's also ugly as sin. Like, this is like, even for 1996, the CG graphics they used in this are just hideous. Like, not even Reboot looked this bad in comparison. And Reboot has not aged at all. They couldn't even render hair. So the entire game I thought I was dealing with, like, guys who were turned into, like, fembots, the slaves or something. But no, they're supposed to be regular women. And they look exactly like robots. And it's just one of the worst things I've ever seen, but not for the reasons I expected, because outside of the ending and the intro, there is no narrative to be found other than like some, like if you've seen the original movie, it actually makes less sense because then you know it's trying to emulate scenes from the movie, but it's not doing it at all. And it's just, man, what dialogue you get is like the main character making wisecracks and bad puns, and like he picks up a shotgun and is like, oh, I better hang on to this. This always comes in handy at the end. And I'm like, fuck off. Fuck off with that shit. You haven't earned that. And that wasn't even good to begin with. Fuck you. And when you finally do get to use the shotgun, it blows up a woman who looks like a robot, but is actually supposed to be a regular woman. The graphics are just terrible, and she just turns into, like, she shatters like glass. It's, what? Oh, and the game also ends with, I think it's supposed to be a clip from the original movie of an uncensored baby dick and a woman screams. It's bad. It's really, really bad. Like, one of the worst games I've ever played. Oh my god.
Is it on Steam?
No, it's on GOG.
Okay.
Good old games. Although I would imagine Steam would probably take it with their... Yeah, at this point they would. And other than that, I've been playing all 3 Mass Effect games. I did a Paragon playthrough of all 3 with a girl shepherd, and it was really fun. I was doing it as an infiltrator, so you get to focus on using a sniper rifle and turning invisible, and it was like really empowering and fun. And then I decided, hey, wait, if I'm going to do a massive article on all 3 of these games, I should probably do a Renegade run. And now I'm doing that with a male shepherd as a Vanguard. And I'm glad I did it because, let me put it this way. If the Infiltrator is like an average stealth game character, the Vanguard is Doom Guy. He literally has a move called Charge that is absolutely ridiculous. You just pick a target and then suddenly you just zoom in a blink second and smash right into them, even if they're all the way across the area, and send them flying. I actually did this on Tally's recruitment mission in Mass Effect 2. There's a part where there's this gigantic Geth Colossus, this really big, powerful enemy that can easily kill you if you get too close. And I decided to do the Renegade choice and have like Tally's friend cover fire and take down shields. And normally what happens is after shields are down and enters recover mode and then gets back up, it kills him. But what I did was use the charge move to go completely across the entire screen right to that one enemy, took out my heavy weapon and kept firing it until the thing died as I was close to death. And he lived, and that worked, and that was amazing. They put a power in Mass Effect 2 that literally breaks the flow of gameplay. It's kind of incredible. And I cannot wait to get to Mass Effect 3 as a Vanguard. It's going to be so fun to do the clone mission during the Citadel DLC. with all those fucking guys with the shields and can just ram right into them and tell them to fuck off. That's gonna be great. But I have complicated feelings on Mass Effect, but replaying Mass Effect 2 has been great so far because that is a legitimately fantastic game and I love it. And Mass Effect 3 I actually did like a lot. It's not like as good as 2. It's like I noticed it's a little buggier. I kept getting when I went to see Joker in the cockpit, there was like a geometry problem where the game would bug out and assume once I went down a slope I was still on top of the flat surface, and so I would just be stuck in the air and then I couldn't move and I had to reload my entire game because I just wanted to have a quick chat with Joker and hear him say a funny thing. And that kept happening over and over and over. It's just, I'm gonna have a lot of words for these games when I finally write about them after I'm done with the KOTOR piece I'm working on, but yeah, Mass Effect, I see why this was so popular now. And I also kind of worry that it was so popular because Mass Effect 1 is super fascist, guys. Like, it's... never mind. Elmo, go ahead and go.
I'm so happy I finally get to talk about the thing that I played. Oh, I got some other tiny, boring, rubbish stuff. I actually have a question for Danny. Because I was listening to our year-end review episode, and have you played more Resident Evil 4?
I have not.
Can I tell you the thing about the Krauser thing
Please
yet?
do.
Because it's... You know that the knife is, like, really super effective, right? It does, like, 50 times the regular damage it does if you use it on Krauser. So it's really annoying to get in close and use the knife, because you have to dodge his stupid quick-time event things, but he dies in, like, 8 hits.
God damn it.
That's just you said, oh, I'm on the Krauser fight, and then you said, yeah, and nothing about the game has been spoiled for me, and I was like, JPEG of that guy with the 2 buttons and he's sweating a lot. Anyway.
Now I might actually go back to Resident Evil 4.
Yep. Hooray. I played a bunch of little stuff. I played the clumsy but very cute Ninja Pizza Girl, which is an anti-bullying game that's pretty cringeworthy at times, but it's made for kids, so I'm fine with it. It has the gameplay of, like, if you've ever played the Flash game that was like a 2D Mirror's Edge, it's like that. I played Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, because I've been playing a bunch of dark, depressing shit lately, and I needed something stupid to cheer me up.
Pac World War II.
One of the things that I loved about Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures is that Pac-Man's robot buddy is named Grinder. I have no idea if that's something that resonates with an American audience. Grindr is a hookup website for gay men in Britain.
We know about Grindr.
So it's... and it's just amazing that, like, you just walk into the lab and Pac-Man's like, Grindr, what's happening? Keep me updated, Grindr. Grindr, busy as always, I see. And I just spent half an hour cycling through them and laughing. And I played The End Is Nigh, which is another game by Edmund Macmillan, who did The Binding of Isaac and Super Meat Boy. It's basically Super Meat Boy, but open world in an apocalypse. It's pretty good. And now, oh god, I'm so happy. I needed to boost my indie cred and my Japanese game cred, so I played Danganronpa. Yay! And, oh boy, despite having so much to say about it, the first point is just that generally everything is just excellent. The design is excellent, the story's super engaging. I marathoned it over a weekend, where I'd played like an hour of it, but nothing had happened. And then on a Friday night, I played it, and, well, something happened. And then on Sunday night, I finished the game, having played it for like 28 hours. So yeah, I was really engaged with it. Gameplay's fantastic. It's very stylish with the trials and stuff. It's really just incredibly well made. And that was my review of Danganronpa. Here's my review of Danganronpa after I'd finished it, after I had gone out with a friend and had 3 Malibu and Cokes. What a fucking miserable piece of shit, unrewarding game. Unrewarding. That's the... Oh my god. We've talked about Danganronpa 2 and I think Danganronpa V3, but I didn't actually know... I knew that there were trials and murders and investigations, although not in that order. That would be a bit weird. But, completely lost my train of... But I didn't actually know what the general setup of Danganronpa games was, in that you're typically a high school age student, you go to this academy, and then you and all these other students are locked in, and this psychotic robot toy bear comes out and says, I'm in charge, you're stuck here forever, if you want to leave you're gonna have to kill someone, and then there'll be a trial, and you have to not get caught, and then, and only then, can you escape. And everyone says, okay, I'm not killing anyone. And he goes, oh really? Oh really?
Good luck with that.
Here's a video
Good
of
luck
your...
with that.
Here's a video of your family. Look how alive they are. Here's another video. It's of your family home. It's on fire. Don't you want to leave and check they're okay, you heartless bastard? It's... Which... Yeah. Since it's murders, trials, investigations, then that also was not in the right order. I'll get it right one of these times. The most common comparison that I can think of is Ace Attorney. And the difference is Ace Attorney is not nearly as engaging because it doesn't have an overarching storyline, or if it does, it commonly takes a backseat. I finished Case 3 of Ace Attorney Dual Destinies a few weeks ago. I haven't gone back to it because I finished the court case and everyone smiled and the murderer was a dick and I'm happy.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Whenever I get an Ace Attorney game, I play it forever until I beat it.
I think it's because I got a 3DS and then I got 3 Ace Attorney games at the same time, so I just kind of... It's like if I'm a dog who's just equally between 2 dishes and I'm just staring at them both until I starve to death and play The Binding of Isaac again. And, but yeah, in Ace Attorney, it's a much less engaging storyline, but it's rewarding, it's good, I'm happy, and fuck me, Danganronpa's miserable. I just felt so depressed.
Buddy, you have no idea.
Just felt so bad the whole time I was playing it, because when the murderer gets caught in Danganronpa, then the robot toy bear who's putting you through all of it puts them in an ironic Final Destination anime trap that murders them. So your reward in Ace Attorney is the bad guy was a dick, the defendant... There are exceptions to Ace Attorney. Sometimes the victims are dickheads, sometimes the murderers are sympathetic, but more often than not, especially in the more recent ones, murderer sucks and you want them to get caught. The victim was a pure cinnamon bun, and the defendant is usually your friend. So everyone's smiling and happy and great, and there's literally confetti. And then Danganronpa, you finish a class trial and your reward for it is, hey, you see this sympathetic person who wouldn't normally have committed murder but was kind of forced into it?
Watch them die cartoonishly and cruelly. And it's your fault.
This is your reward.
You killed them.
Do you feel happy? And, oh... Yeah,
it's just like an Obsidian.
How did you like the main cast, by the way?
I did like one of the... I'll be honest, I've written more notes for Danganronpa than I did for this, is the police. One of the notes I have written down is that I wrote a mixed review of this, and somebody commented on it being like, yeah, I agree, there's a lot of dams to this game that some people don't really see, and, you know, one of my mates, you said that Monokuma was a pretty... Like, he's wacky, but as a villain, he's kind of 2D, although, you know, the true mastermind stuff is a lot more interesting and stuff. I said and stuff a lot, just there, sorry. But one of my problems with the game is Byakuya. He was also just really irritating, and I immediately just had, like, my best Makoto voice. No, that's wrong!
Byakuya's so cool!
Byakuya, yeah, he's like a complete dickhead, but on the one hand, he's not murdering anyone, so in the Danganronpa universe, pretty cool guy. Like,
he never changes throughout the entire franchise.
Yeah,
we're getting a little into spoilers, but
yeah, let's, you know, is there a franchise? Who knows?
Ooh.
Wait,
is there?
But yeah,
there's certainly not a prequel.
I don't...
or an anime sequel. That's actually 2 anime sequels.
That's another thing. We can never do Danganronpa as an episode on the show, because I've played the game and you've both watched the anime, and I don't want to make you both buy the game to play it when you know everything that's happened. But, so yeah, I'm just blurting it all out now.
I think...
No, go.
I've never played the first Danganronpa. I only watched the anime, and
Oh, did you play the extra episode where you play?
I did not. I never got around to the extra stuff in 2.
No, I'm talking the Elmo in 1. There's a special episode, what if episode.
No, that's not actually in the first one. Weirdly enough.
No, it is.
No, there is a what if that's like school mode, which is a bonus where you're crafting stuff. And yes, I did that because I wanted to clear out all the achievements and get everyone's report card filled in. There is another what if storyline which is more of a what if and less kind of side game, so that you can get all the report cards filled in. But that's actually in Danganronpa 2.
Yeah, there's a light novel alternate universe of Danganronpa where some stuff happens early and Makoto realizes, oh, this person is this person, like super early, and that's in Danganronpa 2.
Oh no, I was thinking of the one where you actually get to play as the spoiler character.
I'm pretty sure
not that spoiler character, but the spoiler to the spoiler character.
I'm pretty sure that's still the one in 2.
I think we're still
definitely not the one in 1. Yeah, I've cleared out 1 completely.
But yeah.
Okay. Should we go on to the main discussion?
I just have one more Danganronpa thing. I'm sorry.
We've been talking for like 40 minutes.
So there's, I don't particularly like zero punctuation. This is actually Danganronpa. I'm sorry.
Hey, we gotta have the transition moment.
Okay, I don't particularly like the zero punctuation thing, but he did a review of a Mortal Kombat game once, and I remember him talking about, like the blood and the X-ray attacks, and he said that isn't what creeped me out about Mortal Kombat, but knowing that somebody was watching the blood spewing out from all of the wounds kind of orgasmically, and just watching these bones shatter and watching people get stabbed in the eyes in detail, the thought that someone else was watching that and thinking, fuck yeah, best game ever, that was what made him feel a bit uncomfortable. And that, I feel like there's just one person who works at Spike Chunsoft, and they handle all of the executions. And everyone else just does their own thing, and then once in a while somebody just goes over, and they have a real psycho name, like Malcolm, or Derek, or Elliot. And one of those, and somebody will just come over and be like, hey Derek, we're nearing the end of this trial, and we need an execution. So, do you have anything for us? And Derek just slams his laptop shut and goes okay, so there's this woman, right? And she's running, and there's this angry mob after her and stuff, and she's cornered by them. And then this rope falls from the ceiling for her to get away from, but it's covered in these razor sharp vines, so they're slicing up her hands and her legs. And she climbs up, and she's bleeding. And then these buzzsaws come out, and they're just going back and forth, and they don't kill her, but they're slicing her up, and she's all bloody, and it's ripping through her skin and her clothes, and she just screams, and then she makes it to the top. But it turns out that there was never an escape at the top, and it was just painted on, and then the rope falls, and she just screams and just falls down, and just this massive crash, and just blood and bones when she dies.
Did you watch the V3 executions?
Yes. And I feel in that office everyone is just silent, and then one of them is just Derek, I've been meaning to ask, is marriage counselling going okay? Because I can't help but notice that in the notes for this execution, you've crossed out the name that we gave you for the character, and you've written, my dumb potato bitch wife. And there's the Lisa reference.
Yeah, V3 goes hard.
So yeah,
higher stakes, brutal executions, and all that stuff about being creeped out about someone watching, that's V3.
Yeah, I get that it was. I swear this is the final sentence now, because we do need to. I do still have a lot of notes for this. Is the police?
Hurry up!
But I get that it was. I get that the whole plot of the storyline is hope versus despair, but I feel like they could have done that in a way that didn't invoke so much despair in the player as well as the character. That's about it.
Okay, let's just go ahead and get to the main discussion. this is the police. I don't think I explained it well at the intro, so let me give some background. This was a Kickstarted game made by a studio called Weepy Studio. I love that name. And they were eventually picked up by a publisher that ended up becoming THQ Nordic, which surprised me. But also explains why the voice cast is so good. This the original pitch was a simulator game where you ran a police station and handled dispatch work. And this game does have that, but it also has a story following that police chief named Jack Boyd, who's retiring in 180 days in the city of Freeburg and has to try and make $500,000 before he leaves, though no one's quite sure why he picked that specific amount. And that's the basic framework you get, and then horrible things happen for about 20 hours.
And he's voiced by Big the Cat.
You stole my joke.
Yes, I
was planning that joke for weeks.
Yes, the main character, Jack Boyd, is voiced by John St. John, the voice of Duke Nukem himself, and he is fantastic here. He was like the main reason I wanted to try this game the minute I heard his voice. I was like, that's the Duke Nukem guy? Really? And the entire voice cast is masterful. It's like just a bunch of great voice acting character actors just going their full "what are you talking about?" or their full "I'm walking here." And it actually works for the drama, which is weird.
Well, I really, really like the voice acting. The moment you start up the game, in the intro, it's voiced by John St. John, and the first line is, "Usually, before I go shaking my tits for the press, I like to go see how the professionals do it." And you can skip the intro, but it's impossible to skip fast enough so that he doesn't get out the line, "Usually, before I go shaking my tits." And, and B, as said before, I'm sorry to re-steal it again, but as soon as I realised, oh, that's the voice of Duke Nukem, I was like, wait a minute. So from every point onwards, once I realised who else he voices, when I clicked play, I just said, "Usually before I go shaking my tits for Froggy."
I like to see all the professionals.
Get the fuck out of my nice cozy barn.
I want to play that game.
Oh god. This game is just filled with class, which is weird because it's also not filled with. It's filled with the opposite of class. Yeah. Like, it has this really cool cutout style, and the few cutscenes that are animated, I think they're rotoscoped. I'm not sure. I know that's the case for the sequel trailer that released. There's a sequel coming out this year, and that kind of caught me by surprise when I suggested this one. But I would suggest you check out that trailer. It's really tense and has a genuinely terrifying performance by this one dirt guy playing a dirty cop. But it doesn't really explain much what that game's going to do. But yeah, as far as this one goes, I really hope they make some gameplay changes. I'm just going to say that now. But yeah, as far as this game goes, you have your initial goal, and as you keep playing through it, things get complicated. Your deputy, I think his name was Kendrick, is been with the mob for years, and now it's finally caught up to him, and you have to take his place as their connection in the police force. And if you do, he gets away with his family fine. If you don't, you're gonna end up being that anyways, because they just killed Kendrick and his entire family, and now they're going to do the same to you if you don't do it. So,
yep.
Well,
what is this? Telltale Games?
Actually, unlike Telltale, this game is doing all this on purpose, because it keeps putting you in seemingly important choices, but almost all of them screw you over in just different ways you didn't expect. Like, there's an eventual mob war. The mob war is the only one that kind of subverts this, because you do get a chance to go after the old mob if you side with them later on, but otherwise you're just completely fucked. It's fitting that the achievements for this games keep referencing Moby Dick. So, because they kind of just highlight what type of story you're about to get, and it's not going to be a fun one. Yeah, just terrible. It's this. I've been trying to figure out what the politics of this game are, because it's kind of hard to nail down, and the best I've figured out is everything fucking sucks.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that too. I've been trying, ever since I started this game, I've been trying to figure out what it's trying to say with its story, like what it believes its politics, because I can see it being interpreted in different ways with what it's trying to say about the police in general.
From what I've read, I don't think they care too much about the police as the main topic of the game. I think they more care about modern civilization structures and just how they're all basically corrupt and seemingly unsavable at this point. There's a Lolita thing going on where they have this main character you're always seeing things through the perspective of, who seems like the only sane man a lot of the time, but the further you keep going, it becomes he does some pretty horrible things. And there's some confusion because the game lets you do horrible things by choice too, in order to progress, like using mob contacts to get a cop who's inefficient or is going to do damage to you in some way out of the picture. But as the game goes on, but there's like a divide between the game where the player is just expected to side with whoever you're playing as always in these sorts of games. There's like no big moments in the main game where it's like, do you feel like a hero yet? You enjoy the killing, don't you, Snake? There's no moment like that. But in the main story following Jack, it becomes very clear he's just as bad as everyone else you've met, just in a different way. Because instead of being outwardly destructive of everyone else, he's just self-destructive. And that sometimes spills over, and it's kind of horrifying to watch after a while. He's a drug addict, that's made clear early on, but the severity of it isn't made clear until like late game, where he literally has a complete breakdown and almost ODs. He had troubles with his wife, and there's a good scene early on where you're at a therapist option going through ink blots. But they're all very clear pictures of his memories with his wife, and it paints this very ugly picture, and you get different options. You can just pretend it's something else instead of the thing it actually is, or you can just pretend it's some sort of random lunacy. And or there's also like the interrogation moments and the moments where you're talking with the press. They give you a question, you get three basic choices, like lie about this, blame that person, be honest, stuff like that. But whenever you select an option, the actual text you get may surprise you with something in there you didn't see, like some unexpected racism.
Yeah, there was one where it was talking about a serial killer in the town, and it was like, I can't remember what exactly the question was. It was something about how can women protect themselves or something like that, or should we be worried? And I'm like, and I chose the be cautious option, and it's like, well, I think women should stop wearing such skimpy clothing and so much makeup. I'm like, that's not what I said.
Yeah, that's the game trying to remind you that you're not Jack Boyd, but it doesn't have enough moments like that. So, like, I can see why there's so many people reading this like it's glorifying police corruption or something like that. It's very the reason I compared it to Lolita is because Lolita is very much just saying, hey, pedophile, bad. But people who read it sometimes read, oh, so he's saying pedophile good? Because the narrator's too charming. So yeah, it's that sort of situation going on here. And it actually makes people really sympathetic to Jack at the end, when I'm just like, yeah, he kind of had this coming.
What I was gathering from it was, like, what it felt like is that it's... I think it's pretty clear that Jack's a bad person. But what the game feels like it's trying to be hammering home is that he has good intentions. He's just like this. It made it seem like he's more of a tragic figure who like went into the police force with good intentions, but staring evil in the face every day affected him, and it's so sad.
Yeah, like that talk with the FBI officer he used to know, and like and he explains that the reason he didn't shoot an unarmed kid once was because he remembered something Jack told him, and all this time and this is just shortly before Jack's bad deeds were starting to catch up to him, and he was realizing how much his life is falling apart. And so when this FBI officer compares him to like this hero cop they both revere, Jack just like said, just silently, just like defeatedly blurts out, "Maybe you're right," like he doesn't even believe it. And there's also that moment where you're like meeting the doctor, and he's like basically worshipping Jack for the good job he does as a police chief, and then Jack just starts opening up about his pill problem and intimidating him into getting him more pills, and just sounding genuinely terrifying the entire time. And you're realizing, oh. And I eventually got that the game is trying, one of the things the game is trying to do is break down the idea of the good cop that we have attached in our culture, because what it seems to be arguing is that once you, like as you said, once you do a job like this, actually being a good cop becomes really difficult. The problem is the rest of the story is like a little too detached from reality. Like one of the main bad guys owns a restaurant where rich people can pay to slaughter cows. Like that is a thing that does exist, but like I don't think the person who owns that sort of place is a crazy person who loves to like twirl his mustache and vaguely mention murders and like, call you cop cake.
Banksy, but goes 100 times as hard as Banksy.
It's that fucker Banksy. He owns that slaughter
and calls
restaurant.
Himself Robespierre.
I'm kind of confused because once you get onto, I don't want to be like spoilers for Act 2 and Act 3, but he's
only be a little vague about that
bad.
Stuff.
Yeah.
There is no saint in this game. The only good person you meet the only good people you ever meet in this game are usually victims, or they're about to become victims, and sometimes of Jack himself, like the doctor, who seems like a genuinely nice guy, innocent person, and then Jack makes him basically...
The FBI agents seem decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he seemed decent, but he admitted that he's worried he can't stay like that. And there's, of course, Laura later. We'll get into her more later, but boy, oh boy.
But
being a good person in this game does not end well for anyone.
And like
the mayor's office keep asking you for favors, and the first favor that they ask is, there's a lot of white supremacists around the city right now. Can you do me a favor and fire all of your black cops?
Yeah, I was like,
getting like sort of back into the politics of it, not just like what it says about Jack, but in gameplay, like the way gameplay feeds into the politics of it, or at least how I interpreted it. It feels less of a vindication of the police force, because like it doesn't shy away from police forces doing bad things, but focusing on those characters, especially Jack, makes it feel like a tragic figure, which makes it seem like they're fighting against so much that this is what happens to them because we don't do enough for them, maybe. But like City Hall is completely looked down on as bureaucratic, vain.
They're basically putting their relatives in positions of power. Doesn't that sound familiar?
They're taking resources away from the police department and making them able to stop less crimes, and then saying, you're not stopping enough crimes, we're going to take more of your police force away, making the police less effective. And it's not that that's it's not that that's inaccurate, but part of what comes with saying, hey, the city hall, it's bureaucratic, it's terrible, they're trying to hold us down, part of that is linked with these people overseeing us, regulating us, are wrong and bad, and we need to be rid of them. Because part of what City Hall does is send prosecutors your way to investigate you when you do terrible things, and like kill cops, your own cops, because they're bad, or I mean not bad, but they're bad at their job, or in your way, yeah, or gonna sell you out, and you kill them, and prosecutors get sent your way, and you get punished for it by City Hall, and it's
yeah, that's where things start to become. It's not. It doesn't. I don't even think it seems to be arguing that we should show the police more respect. I think it's arguing that our institutions are genuinely broken. They keep feeding their corruption into each other, and just corroding further and further. And that's why it ends on such a big downer note. No matter.
But also
what side
part of
you
it
pick.
is, like, I think the biggest thing is how it talks about Freeburg as this terrible city, like it's just rampant with crime and everything, and there's like people can see a dead body and not blink, they'll just walk over it on the way to the coffee shop, something like that. There's a line very close to something like that at the start.
Yeah,
and
I remember that.
It doesn't talk about where that, like, why is there so much crime in this city? Where does that come from? Like, it kind of treats that as just the natural state of being in the city, and you're just having to fight against it when of course there's a cause for it, and it doesn't look into that cause.
Yeah, it never looks deep into like the social economic realities of this type of situation. It rightfully picks out the right villains, I think, but it doesn't rightfully pick out why, like, the why
because
of
you're,
everything.
Because part of what you're constantly fighting against is the citizens. Not just,
right.
the criminals, but people who might be calling in false tips or something, and you're just getting a lot of calls in. People are,
Yeah, like that one kid who says he was kidnapped, but actually he was just grounded and forced to be brought
and
in.
I mean, it's not like any of that's not like completely inaccurate, because I mean, false tips and stuff, false calls, they happen, but there's just something about the way that you're constantly fighting against the civilians as criminals while not informing where that comes from.
I understand why they partly did it, because they're trying to show more of Jack's viewpoint and how toxic it actually is, but there's not enough outside context within the game itself. Like, if someone who already believes some pretty awful things plays this, they're not going to leave questioning those awful things. They're just going to know there's a problem. They're just not going to understand why there's a problem.
I mean, that, I'll admit, that's that is a bit, it's a bit to ask to tackle all the problems all the problems that inform an urban center, but you're trying to tackle some of them and ignoring others that inform those, if what I'm saying is making sense. And there are games that do that in different ways. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I think a month or two I saw on Twitter someone was talking about a game that was basically like a city simulator, like a small-scale city simulator, that it had all the different systems, like education and crime and welfare and just all these different things that come with an urban center, the urban populace specifically, and the changes that you make to the city all can help, like, make people more well-fed or more educated, and like it all tied together and like lowers crime rates. Just kind of like this, like building not quite a utopia, but a better city, and how all these different small actions reverberate into the different systems and support them. But this one's just about fighting crime. Or, well, doing crime.
Yeah, it's trying to be a noir story with a limited focus, but what it's bringing up is far, far more complicated than the game actually presents it as, and it's not trying to simplify all this stuff, I don't think. It's more like that's not the main target of what it wants to talk about, but because it keeps bringing this stuff up, you're like, hey, wait a minute, can we hear more about, like, the feminism protest or something?
Yeah, like, I think a better way of putting what I'm trying to say is, like, you can stop crimes and stuff, but all that whether or not you stop crimes informs is whether City Hall lets you get more cops or a bigger raise, pretty much, or whether they make you fire someone. That's really all your actions affect. Like, you don't stopping more crime doesn't lower more crime later in the game, or certain crimes don't spark other crimes later. All the crimes are going to happen no matter what.
Yeah, it's a good gameplay loop for getting you in the head of Jack's character, but that's all it's really effective.
Yeah, the police force,
because it's not really saying anything that political with the system, or at least that's not.
Yeah, the police force don't have much of an effect on the city.
Boy, oh boy, that nihilism.
I never found myself really thinking that deeply about any kind of themes that the story of the game had, because Jack is clearly too unsympathetic, while, you know, still having some positive traits, clearly too unsympathetic to really be delivering any messages, I'd say, himself. But some of the people he's going up against, I mean, the crimes there's rapists, there's sex offenders, there's paedophiles, there's a whole bunch of, you know, top UKIP voters. So you just so it's one of those. When it came to the actual narrative, I enjoyed the story of the game, but for me, and I'm dialing up the pretentious meter here, the Ludo narrative kept me interested a lot more. I have no idea if I'm even using that word right. I've only seen the word...
like you didn't do enough terrible things for us, now you don't get stuff loop?
Which part of the game specifically was... the game...
You didn't fire all the black people, you don't get things.
The thing I learned pretty early on about City Hall is that you can ignore pretty much everything they say, and as long as you do a decent-ish job running the city, then they'll say, like, oh, I'm really disappointed in you, Jack, but they won't actually do anything.
And not in my experience. Like, you can do that sometimes, but other times you really do have to give them something, because there's the other problem that you can't actually stop the mob's crimes.
Yeah. They'll,
like, warn you ahead, hey, don't get involved in this thing. And they're not joking, because if you stop 3 of their crimes, they kill you and you get an unexpected game over.
Oh, really?
The least achieved achievement.
Yeah.
The least achieved achievement in the game is respond to all crimes. And I think that's because, yeah, I have heard someone say that if you do choose early on, when Kendrick asks you for help, if you side with the Mafia then you can stop their crime. You can stop more of their crimes before they kill you. I have no idea if that's true or not.
Yeah, but you can stop Christopher Sands' Mafia later on if you side with him. But if you side with the new guy, hang on, I got his name here, Vargas. Who I thought it was Varga.
I think it's Vargas.
Close
well,
enough.
I read it. I put descriptions to each of the 4 main antagonists in the game here. Mayor Rogers, racist. Christopher Sand, mob monster. Robespierre, douche nozzle, and Varga, weird douche nozzle.
I mean, Mayor Rogers isn't just a racist either.
Oh yeah, let's wait before we get there.
Yeah. When I was mentioning Ludo narrative, the only time I've ever seen that mentioned was a H-Bomber Guy video where he's talking about the Ludo narrative in Darkest Dungeon, and how in that game, rather than any story the game gave him, he became attached to the characters he was controlling, even though they didn't really have many traits. And I think that's something that it takes a while. That's a big flaw in this game. It takes a while to kick in, but after I had spent a few hours playing the game, I had picked a few of the cops who, even though gameplay-wise you only ever see them as a static face on the bottom of the screen, then yeah, it kind of kicked in for me, and I was just like, yeah, I like Chavez and I like Fitzsimmons. I like how Van Dahl and Robbins, they both have this I don't give a shit, I've seen it all kind of expression on their face.
I got the same feeling from a lot of the guys I had.
never got that feeling.
Oh.
Then again, I get that same feeling about any game that gives a character a face and a name, even if they never say anything. It's basically the XCOM strategy going on here.
Yeah, I felt like, after 50 days with them, I was like, you know what? If I send this cop out, and if they die, I will restart this day. And I'll play things differently. Because you are not taking Austin. He was just a rookie when he started, and now he's, like, one of my best guys.
I never felt that. I guess just because, like, with XCOM, I'm doing the actions as them, and I'm directly seeing what they can do and, like, how much damage or effect they can have on a squad. So losing them is like, oh no, all that effect is gone now. But with my guys, they're just numbers I send off in a group, and they do it or they don't as a group and come back. And I don't even remember anyone's names that I had.
Yeah.
Even like the best ones.
I remember
Percy.
Yeah. Percy. Oh.
I murdered him.
One of the greatest things about the game is when it...
What, you didn't, like, make Percy go do the job where he pretends to be a rapist on a TV show?
Yes! Yes!
I
Oh, that was fantastic. That was probably my favourite part of the game. Sorry, you go.
I think he didn't show up to work that day. Because I got.
Oh yeah, and you can just restart the game and then he'll just be there. It always randomizes who and who doesn't show up to work or who wants an excuse.
Because here's how that worked. They're getting into some gameplay problems. It's a little unclear in its instructions. So the guy comes up. He's like, "Hey, I'll fund your stuff. I'll get you 3 more job positions, but one of them has to be my son, who is Percy and who has a professionalism of 5. And as the game says at the start, like 150 is okay." So I'm like, yeah, I'll take that, and I get Percy, and I'm like, hey Chris, you want like what, $2,000 to just kill one of my guys? Okay. And I get Percy, and it's like, okay, have him come tomorrow. And I'm like, wait, it didn't say anywhere in the description that it has to be tomorrow. Because I did it like the start of the day, so I figured it would be later. And it's like, nope, he's got to come tomorrow. I'm like, okay, so I'm like...
Yeah, I had that same problem when I was trying to kill someone so I can meet the half woman, half man quota.
So I'm like, okay, Percy, come tomorrow. And next day comes, Percy's like, nah. Didn't show up to work today, so I'm like, that's money wasted. And so I had to do it again so that he would show up the next day and get killed.
I never had any of my cops killed just because this is just me being bad at reading instructions. But when I saw the mob and it's like, okay, so $2,000, I think that's it, $2,000, one of your cops gets taken out, and I was like, that's pretty harsh. Anyway, how are you going to be giving me this $2,000? And the mob go like, no, I mean you pay us. And it's like, wait, I pay you to kill one of my guys? police. What? What kind of mob doesn't want to kill police officers?
To be honest, when I got that prompt the first time I played it, I was like, no, why would I ever want to do that? And then later I was like, oh, that's why.
But that is a huge part of the game's appeal to me, is that there are those, it's not just about responding to the crimes, but about those events that some of them have positive consequences mixed with negative, some of them it's just negative, and some, very occasionally, you can get a win. I didn't take out Percy, but my favourite little ha ha, I've played you moment is right at the beginning of the game. I think the first event that teaches you that sending cops out on these favours can have consequences is a nightclub owner says, my bodyguard didn't turn up, can you send someone over? And you send someone over, and the nightclub owner says, that's great, here's this money, and then the cop says, I made so much more working at the nightclub, I quit and I'm becoming a bouncer. So you lose a cop and you gain some money, and you think, oh, that's I'm learning some things about the game. And much later, there's if you help defend a business named, I think, Atticus, then they offer you a range of services. Like, they'll let you know if anyone's planning to complain against you, I think. Well, that might be the Labour Union. There's a whole bunch of organisations you can help out. And a lot that you can just take down later. But, one of the services that they offered was... Oh, for one thing, if you give them like 23 grand, which sounds like a lot, but later on in the game you don't really have that much use for money, then you can just straight up hire another cop or hire another detective, so that's great. And one of the services they have is if you give them $1,500, they will advertise like a fake job specifically for one of your officers, so that your officer will say, I quit, I've got this fantastic new job lined up, and then later the paperwork kind of falls through and, oh, it's too late, you've already quit. And there's a moment late in the game where one of your officers who has quit, and in my case it was the bouncer guy, he will come back to you and say, hey, look, Jack, I know some of your secrets, enough to be a problem for you, so here's the deal. I'll give you 15 grand and you rehire me, no questions asked. So I did that, and he also, like Percy, had a professionalism of 5. So he gives me 15 grand. I pay $1,500 to craft a fake job. And at the end of the day, he's like, screw you, losers, I'm out of here! And I'm just like, bye! Have fun at your new job.
Fantastic.
Can we just talk more about Percy? 'Cause, yeah, I did what Dark said, where one of the opportunities you get is, like, hey, I need a cop to come and act in this TV show. He needs to be like, he's gonna be like a rapist who like targets specifically like underage girls and molests them and stuff.
I think that job was made specifically for you to send Percy on.
Yeah,
it was.
So you send someone.
He looks the part.
The greatest thing about that job is that they say, fuck you for sending me to do this. I quit. But you still get paid, so presumably there were like 5 hours of acting or something where he's like, what is this for? So I'm gonna, is this just for a play or something? And then, oh no, we're putting this on TV. What? Percy's still out there wandering the streets, seeing like huge billboards with his face on it. Just like, he might have a badge, but... and it just, but, ... And it's like www.sexoffendervideo.com.
I think there was a divide between the writing staff for the main story, which has a lot of great prose and narration, and the game segments, which are just heavily dialogue based and get a little less like classy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember there was one crime. Oh god, they're all just so weird at a certain point. Let's just start naming off some of the weird crimes we got called to take care of.
Hooray!
Okay, I remember one where there was a buzzsaw incident, and like when you get there, you had the gate is closed, so you have the option of 1, knock.
Mm-hmm.
2, open the gate. 3, ram your car through the gates. That's great.
I found that the longer the game went on, the more comfortable it became just saying outlandish things. Because there was one crime where It didn't quite gain an emotional response from me, but it almost did. And I don't mean in the good way. Because one of the crimes was, I saw a man and he was dragging this woman down an alleyway. And I'm worried. And when you send someone out there, then it says the man is bleeding from several stab wounds, the woman is lying nearby, pretty traumatized, and the dialogue option you can choose is go up to the woman and say, we have a report, we have a witness, we know that you didn't do anything wrong here, it's all gonna be fine. And if you do that, then you arrest the guy, nobody's hurt, none of your officers get injured, and it's all fine. And I thought, that's pretty good, I've been a good cop today. And then the next one after that was, there's a guy looking at this woman's cycling session, he's just touching himself under a trench coat. And you send a cop out, and yeah, the options are, say, hey buddy, stop that, B, pull him away from the window, or C, it just says, join in!
Mm-hmm. Remember the stripper fight from early in the game, and the correct solution is to throw water on them?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I did very quickly learn that in all serious situations, the best thing to do is shoot out the tires and use the taser.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's like...
Oh, yeah.
That is 90% of the solution.
You always get three options. One of them is the one you should never pick. It's the obviously joke. It's a joke one that's going to get someone killed. There's the murder option, and there's taser. And you always choose taser.
But then I do remember that of like the 100 times it asked me to use the taser, there was one time I used it and someone died, and I felt just betrayed. Just like, hey, that's not funny, game.
Oh, remember the day you get the paddy wagon, but you only get it later in the day, and the day starts. It was like, hey, if you have a paddy wagon, you can take more criminals to jail. Too bad you don't have enough budget for one. And then the first crime you get of the day requires the paddy wagon.
You get an achievement for never using the paddy wagon or the SWAT team. So I just went on a run without them. I have stuff to say about achievements later, but I feel like gameplay and plot is slightly more important.
Yeah, there's...
No, go ahead.
Oh,
it's not like we have an order.
There is one really quick thing I can talk about with the achievements. I'm gonna hope that you haven't looked at the stats, because this is something that I genuinely find really fun, because I'm a massive fucking nerd when it comes to Steam games that have achievements for plot progression. I'm gonna tell you right now, because there's achievements for finishing the prologue, finishing Act 1, finishing Act 2, finishing Act 3, which is the game, and if you make $500,000. Okay, 73, I have a print screen of it, 73.7% of people who own This Is the Police finished the prologue. How many do you think finished Act 1?
10%.
Higher or lower than a 10?
Lower.
No,
20%.
It's 33.
Oh, that's better
Not
than I
bad.
expected.
How many people finished Act 2?
10%.
Dark?
I'm gonna go with 10.
No, it's 11.
Oh.
How many people made $500,000?
Nobody.
3%.
You.
10.
Oh.
10 again. How many people finished the entire
3%.
game? 7.8. So
at least it's not like Baldur's Gate statistics, where like
does...
only 1.1 people got past the first area.
Yeah, I like to look at this stuff and think like, so 73% of people made it to the prologue, and then out of those people, 1 in 10 was like, I'm gonna finish this. And 9 out of 10 were like, who's this fucking Percy guy? God.
I hate him.
God. And I can't get paid to have him killed. I have to pay. This is rubbish.
Yeah, going back to the little things that pop up on certain missions where you have to make the decisions for the cops. There were some situations where, like, there was one. Someone was held up at a department store. I was responding to a guy
Oh,
who
yeah.
had like taken a woman hostage at an apartment store and was holding a knife against her throat.
And you can call him. You can call the. No, wait. It was a guy, an Indian guy, and you can call him Apu.
And I can't remember what I did, but I managed to get the knife out of his hand and save the woman, but he was running away. And so it was like, okay, how do you choose to pursue him? And I think I had my cops fan out and search a department store. And it says, mission over, 3 cops dead. I'm like, what?
They must have been really bad at searching that
You mean
department store.
an unarmed guy, an unarmed, normal guy, not a trained assassin, just a normal guy without a knife or a gun or a weapon,
How
killed
do you know he wasn't a trained assassin?
because he was like a frustrated customer or something. Maybe he was a frustrated trained assassin customer, I don't know.
Are you saying?
But, and it's like, you mean my 3 armed cops got taken down by a guy without a weapon?
Well, you picked a really dumb choice. I mean, if he's running, is he gonna stay in the store?
If he
They're
ran out,
probably just looking around the
if he
store,
ran out the
and
store,
he was
how did he
outside,
kill
and then
them?
he noticed they. No. Then he noticed they weren't chasing him, and so he went back, looked through the window, and they were still looking in the store. It's like, oh, I could kill them now.
how? How did he kill them?
With like a pipe or a gun.
Where? He just found one?
It's a city. You can find a pipe.
Do they sell...
Your deputy just...
Because I felt like it was probably like a Best Buy or something. Do they sell guns
Honestly,
now?
you could probably
They probably
just
sell
like
guns
knock
now.
out one cop. No, because the cops are now searching, they're not all in the same area, so you could probably just take out one, take their gun, and kill the other 2.
Well, you know, if a civilian had had a gun, he would have stopped
Yeah.
him, obviously. I just... Like, your deputy's just reporting the bad news to you, and you're just like, man, who is this guy who
If
killed
only,
3 of my
if
best
only a
cops?
teacher had been in that store.
You're like, who's this guy who killed 3 of my cops? And your deputy goes, oh, I don't know. And then he just
It's
walks
Death
past
Wish!
He walks past you and leans close so the security cameras can't see, and just whispers, Mukuro Iku Sabe. Sorry.
Jokes aside, this was a very depressing game to play this month.
Yeah.
Like,
I do have a note that it's like, the last thing we played before this game... Well, the last thing we played before all those anime games for the year-end review was Lisa. And since then it's been Spec Ops and Danganronpa. So yeah, this was a fucking barrel of
like
laughs.
legitimately, in the wake of stuff going on, this game was hard to play. Because it
I did not realize how dark it
Because
actually
it was,
got. Jesus.
it really is just a downer. It
Putting it lightly.
There is a school shooting at some point in the game, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I think I need to stop playing for the day.
It's a downer in the story, and you kind of expect it, but at the beginning of the game it was especially a downer in the gameplay as well, and that's probably my big issue with Act 1. Especially because it took me a while to get the hang of the detective work.
Yeah,
I
me
didn't
too.
realise about like assigning things. That's more traditional puzzle work, but the problem is it takes ages to solve them when you don't have many detectives, and you don't really realise that you can archive a case and then come back to it later, so you can have all your detectives on one case at once and it'll get solved super fast. But I've written in my notes, for the love of God, don't use Roller Coaster Tycoon as an example again. But given that this is a real-time strategy game, one of the things that I've always loved about any kind of strategy game is that there's millions of different ways you can do things, and I'm gonna say thousands of them work. You can play strategy game, like, I started playing Age of Mythology again the other day. You can play that a bunch of different ways, and just play that your own way, however you want to play it, and if it works, it's fine. You can find your own playstyle. Whereas in This Is the Police, it's a lot stricter. So it's like, you can play this any way you want, it's just that most of those ways will fail. And it's one of those games where it's definitely the hardest at the beginning, so that puts you off. And it's very easy to get stuck in that cycle where it's like, I've been fined and they've fired a police officer because I wasn't doing a good enough job protecting the city, and now I can do an even worse job of protecting the city because I'm down a police officer, so now they're going to get angry again. Oh, and now the City Hall, they want me to do a favour for them, and I have to curry favour with City Hall, but now there's a stabbing that I can't respond to because I'm too busy watching the door for a premiere of Back to the Future for some reason.
Yeah, it takes place in the 80s.
Ready Player... No.
More like Ready Player No.
More like...
Shit.
God damn, those movie posters make me want to rip my eyes out.
More like, hey, remember Thing?
Five Nights at Freddy Player 1.
Speaking of the detective work, how it's puzzle work, I eventually just started looking up guides for every single detective thing, just because I started getting to ones where the solutions just... it was really unclear what order they needed to be in.
Yeah, I did that for the more unclear ones. If it was like 3 panels long, that's fine.
For the investigations, I actually like that part. Because
I did like them overall.
Yeah, in order to figure it out, you just have to read through the testimonies very carefully, and then you can start picking out what the proper order is.
Well, I mean...
that's easy at the beginning when they're 3 panels long, and then near the end they're 9 panels long.
Well,
and you have like 3 different frames of somebody holding a drink, and it's...
yeah, it's like, like you'll get hit and runs or stuff where it's like you can't tell if the car is leaving or parked or going or like what's really happening, and eventually I just got tired of it and just started looking up the answers to the investigations to get them out of the way.
For the first one, I just paid attention to how the testimonies describe how they saw the car. I looked carefully at the pictures, and I noticed if there was like one that was going on a curve, that one either, and it was like no blood on it, then that one was about to hit the person. If there was blood on it, it was going away. That sort of thing.
Those
I
were
was
the ones that were
able to
pretty...
figure it out with this thing called logic.
When you get to Act 3, logic isn't enough.
Yeah.
Should we do spoilers on them?
Yeah, it was by Act 2 that's like, okay, these are just getting arbitrary.
Yeah. Should we do a spoiler thing? Because the problems I have with Act 2 and 3 are mainly plot related.
Yeah, let's go ahead and begin the spoilers, and yeah, there's a lot to go over.
So yeah, the big story in Act 1 is the mob war, which ultimately doesn't matter that much. But I do hear that even if you side with Vargas, then you do get to investigate him and take him down later anyway.
No.
Oh.
It's just sand, apparently.
Oh.
I took him down.
Well, yeah, that's probably... Yeah.
It's probably not a wise idea to trust the guy who you meet in an alley while you're vomiting on your shoes and writes a number on your arm and sends you baskets of oranges. He's probably a weird pervert.
Yeah, but compared to everyone else in the game, he's still, like, probably top half.
Now, to be fair, with Sand, like, you know where you stand with him. Just don't fuck with him and you're probably fine. Yeah. With Varga, you think, okay, this guy is definitely into some weird DeviantArt shit.
One of the things about Sand is because he would be the one who would send you warnings like, oh, I got this mafia thing going down and you can't interfere. But I feel like that wasn't synced very well to the crimes. Because, okay, for one thing, I kept forgetting. And I would send someone to respond to a crime, and he'd be like,
yes,
oh,
it was the
you've made
problem.
a big mistake. But the other thing is that he'd be like, hey, I've got something really important going down, and like, at 7 o'clock on this motorway, don't interfere. And then at 7 o'clock you get a report and it's like, a school kid stole an orange. And I was like, the hell? The hell kind of business
Don't
is
interfere. Civilian
Oh my
killed.
god, Vargas sent people oranges, and the kid is stealing an orange. There's
Oh,
connection.
It's symbolism.
It's an
very
op
deep.
against Vargas.
It really makes you think, man.
But yeah, I forgot a few times about Sans warnings and accidentally arrested his people. But I had done enough of his jobs that I could just investigate him completely, no problem, and ended up taking him down. And then I got the 500k, and I was like, sweet, win state? And the game's like, no. I'm like,
Nope.
damn it.
And there's a
I
reason
still have to
for
play
that.
12 more hours of this.
Yeah. Oh. My biggest problem with Act 2 is after the mob war in Act 1, the big plot in Act 2 is that there's a serial killer. And it's a story and a gameplay problem. One of the things I really hated that happens between the acts, I get
All
that
the people
was...
calling in fake sightings.
Oh no, that was hilarious. Because the serial killer's name is the dentist, and this isn't side thing to the achievements, but there's one achievement for never responding to a false alarm in the game, but they programmed it wrong, so actually you get it for responding to every false alarm in the game. So I got it by complete accident, and there's a bunch of people who tried very hard to get it by doing the opposite of what it wanted, and didn't get it. So I was like, oh yeah, that's easy, you just gotta, keep...
That's great.
It is pretty funny because, yeah, the serial killer's name is the dentist, and the longer it goes on, it's just more like, a woman has spotted a man in a grocery store, and she says, from behind, he looked just like the dentist. And then you go there, and whether or not you go there, you always get a false alarm report. And the report is just like, after a while, the reports just start to say, report, he looked nothing like the dentist.
Yeah,
That's it. It was like,
I enjoyed that because it was just like, oh, because I knew from the start, okay, if they mention the dentist at all, I don't have to send people. And there are days where you mostly just get the dentist calls, so I would have good days because I wasn't sending cops off to false alarms all the time, so I could actually stop the real crimes.
one of the things I just hated about the gaps between the acts is that between Act 1, you get hit on the head. Whatever.
Yeah. You think you're going to see your wife Laura, who left Boyd at the beginning of the game, or like before that, and then someone whacks you, and then afterwards after he gets out of a coma, and like I think one day he dyes his hair, gets like this ridiculous tiger jacket he wears throughout the entire rest of the game, and buys sunglasses, but then throws them in the trash. It's like, nah, that's a little much.
Yeah.
And Jen just starts becoming a monster.
And then you go back to your police station, and all of your cops are calling in sick because every one of them is exhausted. And I was like, I know that you needed to do something in the gaps while I was away, but that's just really annoying, game. Everyone has a stamina bar of like 0 at this point, and a lot of my best cops are suddenly now flagging and alcoholic.
Yeah, you're the deputy guy is good deputy, but that's all he's good as.
I really wanted to know what you both thought of the thing that I had a problem with in Act 2, because Act 2, like I said, serial killer, the dentist, and the game says, right, there's a serial killer. Your first introduction to the guy is when you have to send 2 detectives to respond to a crime scene, and it turns out he booby-trapped the crime scene and one of them dies. So I had to restart and just send my 2 most useless detectives there. And then the less useless one died, so I restarted again. And then it says, okay, so there's a serial killer on the loose, the FBI are in town, they want to take care of it. Do you want to investigate this? Or do you want to leave it to the FBI? And honestly, I'd gotten the hang of the detective work, and I was having fun with it as a strategy game, and I went, no, I'm fine. And it went, are you sure? Because Jack Boyd can handle this. But I went, no, it's fine. You've given me the option. I'm happy to say no. And also, once that one detective gets killed, your detectives tell you, we will now only go out if you send the SWAT team with us. And there's an achievement for going the whole game without using the SWAT team. So I knew it was possible. So I was like, no thanks, the FBI can investigate it. And sure enough, these markers come up on the map saying, hey, do you want to send out the SWAT team? And I went, no, it's the FBI, I don't care. And then about 16 days passes. And whether you catch the guy or not, I keep saying the guy even though...
Wow.
Yeah. Whether you catch the murderer...
I mean, we're in spoiler territory.
Yeah. It's a chick. Whether you catch them or not. One thing that's annoying... I'm getting sidetracked from my main annoyance to talk about a side annoyance. Even if you do investigate, one of your cops will be a snitch who gives evidence to the FBI anyway. So the only way to track them individually is to hire another employee to be a snitch, to seek out the original snitch, so that you can sack the original snitch, so that you can investigate the crime that you honestly... Why aren't you letting the FBI investigate it anyway? Like, just investigate it with them. But yeah, I went through like 2 weeks, didn't investigate the crime, because the FBI were going to investigate it. One day the dentist gets caught, and then there's a big press conference, and it says... Hey, were you withholding evidence from the FBI? And I went, no, because... No, I wasn't. I chose not to investigate it, but I wasn't withholding anything. And the next day, at work, I get a call from City Hall, and it says, we've heard you've withheld evidence from the FBI. We've sacked 16 of your cops, 8 of your detectives, we've cut your salary by like 40%, and even though we've sacked 16 of your cops, you can only rehire 8 of them. Anyway, have fun. And I was like, I get that this game is about consequences for actions, but you've just deliberately made your own game really unfun to play. Why would you do that? You gave me the option saying you don't have to investigate it, and you said, surprise! You're fucked.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people who developed this are sadist.
Yeah, also...
Does anyone want to talk
the
about...
dentist isn't the person that gets caught. It's the twirling mustache Banksy, who was killing...
Oh, Banky.
Who was killing women that the mayor was, like, involved with or, like, raping. It's unclear. And he was killing them just to shed light on that the mayor was doing this. And it's like... What?
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Yeah. I could probably chuck in like my biggest complaint of Act 3 there as well, because this is... At the beginning of the game you have a mob war, but whoever you choose... both sides are pretty much the same. They're both mob bosses.
Except one is definitely into weird shit on DeviantArt.
Wait. I mean... I don't know anything about that. I instantly regret that.
The guy comes up to you in the alley and writes something on your arm. He's like, hey, you know what? I smoke weed.
I just met you.
I smoke weed. Yeah, call the number.
Yeah, in Act 3, it's pretty much a repeat of the pick a side, any side, both sides are equally shitty and have no loyalty to you whatsoever. This is something that I had really wanted. At least I can still ask you what you would have done in this situation. Because the choices in the game is you either have to side with Mayor Rogers, who, as mentioned, is an old racist sex offender, or you can side with Robespierre, who's a charming, manipulative sociopath who decided to draw attention to the mayor's sex offender past by having the women who he had assaulted murdered. And he's not doing that out of any, like, this will bring justice for them. He's just doing it so that he can be mayor. And
also, LOL.
Yep. And, like, I get that what they were going for was, this is a difficult choice. Not for the right reasons, but a very difficult choice. But all it made me feel... I just thought it was deeply unpleasant. Any game where there's a situation where you have to choose to side with one of two people, and one of them is a rapist, and they're arguably the less bad choice... That's a game where it's like, no, look, you were going for something interesting, but you really fucked up.
It's like...
You really badly messed up.
I think the problem here is that the game wants you to do this from Jack's perspective, but the way the game presents itself, they're never really thinking from Jack's perspective because of how detached the main narrative and Jack's problems are from the police work stuff.
I think Jack would probably find a serial, as bad as he is, Jack would probably still find a serial rapist.
Oh no, he absolutely hates both of them. No, the narrative makes it clear he hates both of them, but he's trying to use both of them for his own reasons to stay police chief.
I just
by
want to know
the way,
straight
doesn't work.
I just want to know straight up now, between the two of you, like, who would you side with in that situation?
I'd move.
If you had to choose.
I didn't get that far. I think I ended like before the last time skip where I would have to choose that.
Well, I know it's tough because they're both horrible.
It's like I think I'd rather just stop playing.
Yep.
Because like if I was actually like making that choice in real life, I would go neither. Why do I have to choose? I'm gonna take my $500,000 and move.
I'm very confused by the game's choice of words because it keeps saying like it keeps using the pronoun you, like this is you we're talking to the player when it's actually trying to talk to Jack. Which if it just cleared up that issue a little, you'd understand you're not trying to roleplay as you're trying to control Jack's choices, which would have made a lot of this make a whole lot more sense and like have more impact, because then it makes sense why you're choosing between these two awful people, because you literally can't pick a third choice for the thing you're hoping to get because you need one of them. Even though they both end up betraying you, you don't really know that yet and you're desperate.
This is my one moment of like, this is awkward given real life events, but one of the reasons why I eventually sided with Attitude, so I went with Mayor Rogers, just because the other guy, given that he was more charming and manipulative, I figured he would aim higher, and he was very, I'd say, capable of doing some real damage and putting himself in a position of power. And the moment where it gets awkward is because Mayor Rogers, he's hated by everyone who knows him. He's a stupid, racist sex offender. And what are the odds of someone like that ever actually achieving high political office? I mean, come on. He's a fucking idiot.
Game's too unrealistic.
He wants to put his fucking, his like nephew in charge of the police? What kind of idiot?
Boy, oh boy, when they were making this game, I don't think they were expecting U.S. politics to happen.
Yeah.
Can't imagine what that would be like.
To be fair, if I was a TV producer and someone sent me the actual history of the 2016 U.S. election and the following presidency, I would fire them.
Yeah. The fuck is this?
I would say, why did you make Frank Underwood so stupid?
I want to bring up a little problem I have with the game, since we mentioned it a little before, and I can name a specific example. Like, there's a divide between the game and the narrative, and that especially goes with how they handle social issues, because, like, in the game world, the, like, protests are annoyance, but in the main narrative, it's clearly very sympathetic to victims of fights like this. Like, you find out that the woman that Jack is falling in love with, Lana, was assaulted by Mayor Rogers several years before the events of this game, and she's chosen not to go forward even though she has very clear evidence, because she realizes that society will, like, her career will be in jeopardy. People will judge her, make assumptions, and she won't be treated as professional anymore. She'll either be pitied or hated. And I was like, holy shit, that is about as close to getting it as this game ever gets when it comes to this stuff.
Meanwhile, in the game, you get a notification that's from City Hall that's like, hey, the blacks are out here protesting, shouting, we want attention!
Exactly. It's just like,
it's not even a
I think there was
joke.
Different writers.
That's what they say. They call them the blacks, and they say that they're shouting, quote, "We want attention," unquote. Like, jeez.
I'm very happy the sequel takes place in some backwoods town somewhere instead of the city, so this never happens again. There's some real fucking tonal divide between the game portions and the narrative portions. Like, if I watched the entirety of the cutscenes as like basically a movie, a 2 hour 17-minute movie on YouTube, and I was really impressed by everything I saw. The acting, the script, the descriptions, the dialogue. It's just like, even with like no animation and this weird comic book cutscene thing going on, it worked. It's like Ace is like some of the best writing I've seen in a video game in a long time. And then you go into the actual game, and yeah, it's just, hey, can you fire all the black people?
There was also
like,
a couple things that just kind of struck me out of the blue. Like, just like a couple things that kind of connected together in my head. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. There's like one call you get at one point that an elderly woman's like in the park's like, there's transvestite walking out around here, and how so indecent for the kids. And it's like, false report, it was a Scottish guy wearing a kilt. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then
yeah, like, I get what they're trying to go with the joke, but then I also think they're making a joke against the same thing they're trying to put down. I'm like, guys,
I mean,
come on.
that's the thing is, that's not just it. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Then there was something later that, and this was what struck me as weird. I think it's a newspaper article. Like, it might be a newspaper article or it might be a protest or something. But it says, it calls someone an LGBT activist. And that struck me as weird. Because...
shit, maybe they are woke.
That... Because what...
I don't think that's a mistake. That's way too easy that's way too hard a mistake to
make.
I think they did that on purpose.
Because like, even people who, like, I never see LGBT anywhere. Like, even among people who are like vehemently against gay and trans people, they joke about it, calling it LGBT or.
I've only seen that in like queer discourse circles where people were like the people who want to disclude trans people.
Yeah.
Trans people who are mad about the people trying to kick them
yeah,
out.
And that just struck me as weird. I don't even know what to like it that like, I don't know what that says. I'm just like, that's weird.
I don't know if they're really online or they just forgot to put the T.
Yeah.
It's a hard call.
Like that just bringing that up out of the blue, because that was weird to me. Like, speaking about weird things that it says in a few of these blurbs in the game.
So anyways, the game ends with everyone dying.
Sounds about right.
Lana gets killed off screen, and it's only mentioned in the Robosphere ending when he mentions that, yeah, she was a loose end he had to tie up. And it's never mentioned in the Rogers ending, but you can assume it already happened if you played the other ending. Your deputy, you find out, who disappeared for like 2 weeks ago after you go into the drug overdose, you end up discovering got killed at some point. You're basically just done with your wife. She's had enough of you. And oh yeah, that was probably one of the best scenes in the game, where like everything's going wrong and then he's just trying to desperately talk to his wife, and you figure out why he wants $500,000, this thing that everyone's been wondering about. And it was just because of one offhand conversation he had with his wife when they were going over their finances years ago, and he asked her, would he be a hero if he had $1 million? And then they had a back and forth, and it's like, okay, what if it was just 500,000? And she has no idea what he's talking about, and he just freaks out and is like, that was genuinely one of the best scenes I've seen in a video game ever. It's like, damn.
This is a really weird and useless connection, but I also just kind of want to see. When you say about how Lana's only mentioned in the Robespierre ending, did you see that on TV Tropes? Because I put it there.
I saw that a long time ago.
Oh. Well,
I saw it on TV Troops, but it was a long time ago before
Oh.
I even suggested you play this.
No, because it's on the what happened to the mouse bit, and because Lana is not mentioned after she and Jack have a bit of a fight, and like I mentioned about how the SWAT team thing in Act 2 and how it sacks most of your staff, and so I guess that's one positive for like I said, the connection between the player and the cops is that I did then say, okay, fine, I'll go back 2 weeks and I'll investigate the crimes with the SWAT team, because I like Tsubaki and the jokes I keep making about her name, about Soul Eater. I like her more than I like, getting an achievement for doing the no SWAT team run. So I did that, and then when I finished the game, I reloaded from Act 2 and played through it again without investigating, without the SWAT team. And that was when I decided, I'm gonna get the Robespierre ending this time. And Lana's never mentioned, except at the very end, if you side with Robespierre, he goes, I'd just like to thank you for never bringing up Lana. I know that it's like a painful memory to you, and it haunts me as much as it haunts you. Thanks for never bringing up what I had to do. And you're just like, oh great, thanks. So, you couldn't even give us the one likable character in the game not dying horribly. Thanks, game.
To be fair, you kind of had to see it coming the moment that her last scene plays, because she got that file on Jack from him, and he knows that she was attacked by the mayor, and what he did with all the other women attacked by the mayor, and then it's like, oh. Plus now she knows too much about Jack, so yeah.
I still really want to force both of you to be like, right, you have to pick serial rapist or murderer of victims of serial rapist. You gotta choose! It's like the fucking worst game of truth or dare.
To be fair, I'd probably just pick Rogers because he's gonna die pretty fast at some point.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
He's
I'd probably go Rogers just because status quo.
Yeah. Just block the entrance to McDonald's. He's like, I need my 2 Filet-O-Fish! And then he just has a heart attack. Okay, so I'm going to be joining this podcast next week from Guantanamo Bay.
How would you say you like this? How would you say you like this game overall? Let's give her final thoughts.
I'll go first.
Okay, yeah.
I think it had a strong core gameplay loop, and I liked it as a strategy game, but I think it went on way too long. I just got I was having fun the first couple hours. My first time I sat down to play through, I was enjoying it, and then the next couple times it was just like, yeah, it's just this. It's just this, and I wasn't as big on the cutscenes and stuff. 'Cause I thought some of the writing was stiff. Every time I boot up the game and hear that line, I just cringe. 'Cause
Oh, come on. How can you not love... I was making love to my wife and you called me and told me to go fuck myself. That kind of behavior is rude and inappropriate. Come on, that's a great
that's
line.
pretty good. But, it had some good lines. It's just some of it was trying to be too cool and noir-y. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, cool off. You're an old guy. Stop trying to be cool. But yeah, it went on too long. That was my biggest thing. There were nitpicks here and there, but it was a good strategy game that just way overstayed its welcome.
What about you, Elmo?
I've got in big letters in my notes, Papers, Please is 1.5 hours long on purpose. Because if you get a game that's not inherently fun at its core, then that's just about how long you can push an interesting story through it.
Yeah.
But, let's see. The last two, because I have 2 screenshots that I took. They're not screenshots of the game. Even though the game did have a lot of problems, I was kind of surprised to see that I looked at its score page on Wikipedia. I thought that this would be like an indie darling. I thought that this would be a bigger hit than it was, but it's got a few scores, like GameSpot 7 out of 10, IGN gave it a 6, but Destructoid gave it a 4, Game Informer gave it a 5, and the International Business Times, who I didn't even know reviewed games, they gave it 2 stars out of 5. And you can take this as a compliment or not, but I wouldn't have been surprised at all to see if it had been, averaging at 8 out of 10 or something. There's a lot good there. It's just that even if you take out the problems, it's not quite ever going to be one of the best games on Steam. And the last thing that's to say that I just found really funny is I found a Steam thread about this game, and there was a completely uncalled for roasting in the first and only reply it had, and it was absolutely incredible. The thread is named Unsolved Mysteries, because somebody had just finished the game, and they had said, Number 1, who hit us at the end of Act 1? Number 2, in the end, what's gonna happen to Jack? Is he gonna, kill himself after losing everything? Are these 2 questions answered, or did I lose something in the story? And it has one reply, the ending is saying that nothing is important and nobody cares how much money you earned or what moral choices you made. Just like in real life. And I just thought, damn!
It's kind of half that.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, I like the idea of the main game itself, and it does have some good moments, but also, yeah, it goes on way too long. If it had stopped at day 30, I'd be like, this is one of the best games I've ever played, but no. But the actual narrative of the game is, really interesting to me and, really entertaining. It's I haven't seen a really good noir story in a very long time, and I think this is one of the only good ones I've seen in years. The dialogue is snappy. I love Boyd's narration and just how John St. John delivers every single line. I like how kind of cheesy all the acting is and how it actually works to help build the mood and make some stuff more impactful or powerful. I really like a lot of characters, even if you don't get to see them much. Christopher Sand, I like all this stuff you hear about him before you meet him, and then you meet him and he just starts going on and on about hunting. I'm that's great.
He was one of the best characters.
Yeah, he's the one evil asshole in this game. You can be okay, I can see myself working with you, because even one of the crimes you find out later he did because of Robespierre's work, it turns out he was doing it in retribution for a man assaulting his daughter, and I'm yeah, I can sympathize with that. He's the one guy who's just, he's a monster, but he's a business monster, not like Banksy if he was a sadist.
It's organized crime.
Yeah, I do like one thing the game does, that after a while it gets you so used to the system that you just start making genuinely morally evil choices just because it's easier, and then it kind of hits you, oh wow, am I actually doing this? And you're realizing the game is trying to connect you to Jack's point of view and just how far he's falling. And that would have been great if the game wasn't so fucking long.
Yeah.
But yeah, despite all my problems with it, I really liked it, and I did like that I picked it up. It's just, I'm probably never going to actually finish it. I would say buy the game, support the developers, maybe get it on sale, play the first act and enjoy it, and see how far you want to go from there. And if you don't, just watch all the cutscenes on YouTube and you'll have a good time. And I'm very interested in the sequel because they're shifting it to a small town. Jack is like a supporting character in it who's like some sort of agent of chaos. And I want to see where they're going with it and what they change with the new setting. So hopefully that will be much better. But yeah, the first game, very, very, very flawed. But what it does well, it does really well. And I want to see more from the studio. So yeah, that was This Is the Police. Kind of a mess, but it was a good... I liked it.
Wait.
Alright, Danny, what are we playing next?
So I had one game in mind, but then another game came out very recently that's been catching my attention, and I've been wanting an excuse to pick it up and play it. Into the Breach, from the makers of FTL.
Yeah, I heard about this.
I heard about it from Austin Walker on Waypoint. He's been singing its praises ever since it came out, and I know a few people have picked it up and have been pretty big on it, and I watched a little. It looks interesting. It's a turn-based strategy game where you play as the last survivors of humanity in a bunch of mechs who have to go back in time to the start of the invasion that killed everyone and try and stop it. And it's a roguelike like FTL, but instead of manning a ship and doing ship strategizing over and over again, you've got a squad, an ever-changing squad, because people will die and you'll have to get new ones. And you're just going back in time over and over again to try and stop this and gradually building up your munitions. And it's marketed as a turn-based strategy game, but from what I can gather, it's much more like a puzzle game where you have to figure out where exactly to place everyone and the exact moves you need to not just kill the enemies on the map, because you don't want to kill everything. Things will keep respawning. There's just we'll get into that when I'm starting to describe everything about the game. That we'll get into it next time. But I'll just say it's best to think of it more as a puzzle game than a turn-based strategy game. And it looks cool, it sounds cool, and I'm looking forward to getting into it, because FTL was great. And this looks pretty good.
Okay, and Elmo, be sure to pick something really pretentious next time.
Oh, I have.
Okay, for the next episode, we will be looking at Into the Breach, and we'll see you then. And as for now get the fuck out of my nice cozy barn!
Oh, now what do I do?
Get the fuck out of my nice cozy
And you disappeared in the night, just as you came. Why didn't I know back on that day then that no good be born of loving you, and still no good